This week on Ohio's Influence in the West, we dig up some evidence that suggests that it was William Collins of the 11th Ohio Cavalry who was the original architect and possibly the instigator of Red Cloud's War starting in 1866. So as some of you may know, the war that started in 1866 was in result to the U.S. Army building forts along the Bozeman Trail to protect miners and other civilians who were traveling through the heart of Indian country on the Bozeman Trail. So after poring over some original battlefield reports, there is some evidence that the higher echelons of military leadership might have actually used the excuse of protecting civilians to accomplish a plan that was actually laid out, or at least initiated, by the soon-to-be mustered-out Colonel Collins of the 11th Ohio Cavalry. In one of Collins's closing reports before leaving the hostile plains to go back home to Hillsboro, Ohio, he lays out 3 years of intense Indian fighting experience in 3 short paragraphs. Not only did Collins predict the failure of the 1865 Powder River expedition, but he actually went on to suggest the very plan that was implemented by the U.S. Army less than a year later. In a battlefield report dated February 15th of 1865, which by the way you can find in the official records of the War of the Rebellion, Colonel Collins actually spends many pages detailing a very intense running Indian fight over many days in the middle of winter. However, it's what he finishes with in his report that was interesting. He states the following: "Having been nearly 3 years in this service and being about to leave it, I venture to add a word as to the policy to be pursued. I beg to repeat the suggestions which I have made, that the permanent cure for the hostilities of the northern Indians is to go into the heart of their buffalo country and build and hold forts till the trouble is over. A hasty expedition, however successful, is only a temporary lesson. Whereas the presence of troops in force in a country where the Indians are compelled to live and subsist would soon oblige them to sue for peace and accept such terms as the government may think proper to impose. The Black Hills, Bighorn Mountain, and Yellowstone country are all rich in minerals, but this wealth cannot be made available while hostile bands of Indians are roaming over the country. If these Indians could be induced to remove north toward the main Missouri and remain there, it would open up an immense region for mining and agriculture which cannot now be reached. They would be in a fine buffalo country and out of the way of collisions with whites, which are always liable to occur if they are near together." And so, with that report, Colonel Collins soon leaves his post at Fort Laramie, returns home to Hillsboro, Ohio, and continues on with his civilian life. However, with the American Civil War coming to a close and the bloodiest year of Indian hostilities yet to come that same year, there is some evidence that this report made it to the highest levels of command. And one small bit of this evidence is that this report is found in the official records of the War of the Civil War, the War of the Rebellion, when even though it wasn't necessarily part of the Civil War. This was deemed important or vital or important enough to put in those official records. So with that, did the strategy and tactics used by the U.S. Army in 1866 through 1868, known as Red Cloud's War, of building Forts Reno, Kearney, and C.F. Smith right in the smack dab middle of the very territories mentioned in Collins' report, come from Collins himself? Obviously, we will never know, but I found this is interesting and definitely one of these Ohio influences that I want to bring out there, because when I was going through the official records, actually studying the Western theater of the Civil War, I came across this gem, if you will, of this report of William Collins. And I found it when he actually specified what to do to build forts and hold forts in the heart of the very country that they later fought over the next year and the years preceding. I found it kind of coincidental, or I guess too coincidental, not to say something. So again, this video is more speculative and more definitely subjective, but I want to see what you guys think. This battlefield report found in the official records that suggests from William Collins himself before he returned home to Ohio, he said build forts in the heart of Indian country up in the Bighorn Mountains, which is exactly where Fort Kearney, for example, is. So the question I have for you experts out there is, did this report influence the decision-making of commanders in 1865 and later in 1866? And as always, I suggest that you guys do your own research and find your own gems in the official records or other documents you may find. But either way, what Collins outlined in his February 1865 report was exactly what occurred later on in 1866. So with that, thank you for joining us on another video of Ohio's Influence in the West, albeit kind of a unique and subjective one. And of course, until we see you in the field again, ride hard.